once more, and welcome back to the 2024 Big Ten predictions. Here's the week number 5 as we get going. This week, we have a smaller schedule, and now that it's conference play, we're going to have smaller schedules the rest of the season. With that being said, we have a game tomorrow night starting us off the bat, plus a top 25 matchup between two teams that are unbeaten. We can break that all down and more with the predictions here for week number 5 of the 2024 Big Ten season. So let's get started right now, everyone. As we get on in today's episode, our first matchup, Rutgers taking on Washington tomorrow night under the lights in New Jersey, as Rutgers takes on Washington. Washington coming in with a pretty good record, only 3-1 through their first 4 games of the season, but a tough road test, having to travel across from West Coast to the East Coast, all the way to New Jersey, the birthplace of college football, against Rutgers. This is going to be a game that I think is going to test Washington because they have to travel from the West Coast to the East Coast and play a game on a Friday night. It's in one of those games that I feel that Washington might have some issues with, even though Washington's only loss this year is to Washington State and an upset in the Apple Cup. Last week they won 24-5 against Northwestern. Can they show their second Big Ten team in their second Big Ten game ever that they can win? I think they can this week, but I think it's going to be tough. I think Rutgers are going to try to prove a point that they can stick with Washington for a majority of this game, and I think that could happen this week. So with that being said, I think it's going to be a pretty good game for Washington and Rutgers. I think it's being a low scoring. I think it could be tight until the end. I think it's going to come down to whichever team doesn't make the least mistakes. With that being said, I have Washington going on the road out to Rutgers and getting a win on the road tomorrow night in prime time on Friday night. Moving on to the next matchup. We're staying in the Big Ten here, as always. Next up, Minnesota. The Golden Gophers. They head to Minnesota, they head to number 12, Michigan. Took me a while. Had the wrong helmet for a minute there. But Minnesota going into Michigan tomorrow on Saturday afternoon. This game, Michigan number 12 of the country. Minnesota coming off their second loss of the season. Now 2-2 after losing to Iowa last week at home in a tight Big Ten game, which was a Big Ten slugfest, by the way, for Minnesota, I think. It was a Big Ten game for Minnesota. Minnesota had a 14-7 lead at one point, and they kind of blew it late. Minnesota kind of blew it late in this one last week against Iowa, and it turned out for the wrong reasons. But this game, a trophy game of the Big Ten, Minnesota having traveled to Michigan to play the Wolverines. I think it's going to be a tough game for Minnesota to get a win here in Ann Arbor, playing a top 15 team on the road. It's going to be tough. I think Michigan's going to get the win in this one, with that being said, as I do think Minnesota drops to 2-3 on the season. So giving Michigan there, that one. Meanwhile, our next game, we have Nebraska going into Purdue. West Lafayette to play the Boilermakers. Purdue coming off a game where they lost 66-7 against Notre Dame. And then last week, winning 21. Last week, losing 38-21 at Oregon State. Back-to-back losses for this Purdue team this year after starting the season good. And looking at how Purdue started, they got wins, 49-0 win against Indiana State. And then the following week 2, they had another matchup, which was tough as well this year. So I'm looking at this matchup, Purdue against Nebraska. Nebraska, their team, they come off a loss last week, and both these teams are pretty tough. Nebraska, they can win. Purdue can win though too. With that being said, Purdue, they've shown teams they can upset them, but I think Nebraska goes on the road this week and continues their good season, their hot start, and gets a win on the road on Saturday afternoon. Moving on. Yep. To Indiana, unbeaten 4-0 Indiana Hoosiers, one of the best teams in the Big Ten, against Maryland, who is coming in. So this matchup, Indiana unbeaten 4-0 on the year. This one's one of those interesting matchups in my mind as I look at it on paper. And I tell myself, okay, is this game that ask myself this question: is this a game that Indiana can prove to the top 25 polls that they can to the poll committee that they can be a top 25 team? I think yes. They're not ranked yet, but Indiana going into this game against Maryland. Maryland's a team that they've showed in the past that they could be good for a long period of time. But I just want to know, can Indiana sustain that and play good? And I think playing at home this weekend, that's going to be an interesting game for Indiana to play this weekend against Maryland. I think it's going to be a tough test for them as well. I think it's also, this game could be another one of those games that comes down to which team makes the fewest mistakes in the game. And with that being said, I think Indiana can pull it out and get a win. I think, and I have Indiana going 5-0 on the young season, because I do think they get their 5th straight win to start a year. Moving on. Out west, USC, the Trojans. They have the Wisconsin Badgers coming in, their first Big Ten home opener this week, which is going to be interesting to watch. In my mind, it's going to be a game that's going to be interesting to see, only because of a few reasons. Number one, after USC lost to Michigan last week, close game in Ann Arbor, it was a pretty tough game. They go up against Wisconsin. Wisconsin, they're one of those teams, they're coming off a pretty tough schedule. They're coming off a loss to Alabama a few weeks ago. Didn't play last week, had a bye week. After losing 42-10, this is a game I think Wisconsin could have another tough game playing out west. And I will say this, Big Ten teams, usually when they from the Midwest, when they go out west to play teams like the USCs, the Oregons, the Washingtons, and the UCLAs of the world out west, they tend to have issues playing out west. I think it's going to be a tough thing for the Wisconsin to do this week. With that being said, I think USC is going to control most of this game, but I do think Wisconsin hangs with them for a few quarters at least. Unfortunately, I do see USC getting the win at home against Wisconsin and giving Wisconsin their 2nd straight loss on the season. Moving on to another game. This one should be fun, though. Top 25 matchup, Illinois unbeaten against Penn State. Yes, indeed. This one should be pretty fun to watch coming up on Saturday. And it's going to be fun to watch. And under the lights as well in a night game where you have Illinois and Penn State. I remember a few years back, I don't know how many years ago, it was in the last 5 years at least, the new overtime rules. Illinois and Penn State played a game that went to overtime, and of course Illinois, and after double overtime now, they have this new rule that you play for 2-point conversions in college football after the double overtime. You play for 2-point conversions after the first 2 overtimes, after each team gets a chance to score touchdowns and field goals and stuff. You play a 2-point conversion game, and Illinois won that game in Happy Valley against the Penn State Nittany Lions on the road and upset them, their first loss of the year. This game, though, I think Illinois is going to have to prove that they can stick with Penn State. I think going into Penn State, a game that's going to be hard to win. It's going to be the first tough game, unfortunately, for Illinois. For Penn State, I think it's going to be a little bit more easier for them to get the win in this one. With that being said, I do think Penn State gets the win and beats Illinois on Saturday. Moving on. Number 3, Ohio State. They travel to Michigan State, East Lansing for Saturday night's showdown in the Big Ten Conference. A game that's going to be interesting to watch is another game that's going to be interesting to see, because you have an Ohio State team unbeaten and a Michigan State team that's fallen on hard times. Michigan State last week, what were they playing last week? Well, okay, they lost 23-19 to Boston College. A game I picked Michigan State to win. Unfortunately, I do think Ohio State's going to get the win of this one, but I think Michigan State will play their kind of game and stay with Ohio State for a majority of it. But at the end of the day, I do think Ohio State gets the win on the road on Saturday night under the lights. So give me Ohio State there on Saturday. Moving on, last but not least, Now it's time for UCLA as they take on Oregon. The Ducks and the Bruins. Finally, UCLA, we got the right helmet this time around after making a mistake earlier. And as we get into this one, UCLA, Oregon coming in ranked. UCLA coming in unranked after losing 42 to 13 against Indiana a few weeks ago. Again, I picked UCLA to win in. Surprisingly, one of Indiana's 4 wins in the Big Ten, one of their Big Ten wins. UCLA and Oregon, this game's going to be an interesting game at the Rose Bowl. Oregon, two teams that are Pac-12 teams, playing their first game against each other as Big Ten teams that are used to playing each other in these games. Oregon has had quite a bit of experience playing in the Rose Bowl game itself, and even wins in the last decade and a half, over the last decade plus, against Wisconsin a few times. But this time around, I think Oregon gets the win, though, against UCLA, as I do think Oregon picks up the win and stays with a good record. So give me the Ducks of Oregon against the Bruins on Saturday evening. That being said, that is the 2024 Week 5 Big Ten predictions. I will be back next week with Week number 6 predictions on Thursday. I hope everyone enjoys. Please remember to watch, like, subscribe, and don't forget to tell friends as well to do the same if they haven't done so. Also, don't forget to hit that notification button below so when there's no video on the channel. With that, thanks and have a good day. Stay safe and peace out. I will see you right back here in Week 6 next Thursday. Bye for now, everyone, and peace out. Thanks for watching. See ya.